Hi. Um, I thought I would talk today about this is going to sound weird, especially on this channel. Um, about the importance of remembering and keeping in mind that you have the personality disorder. Now, first of all, personality disorder is just a list of traits that people have. Um, and it's different for everybody, but there's basically it's sort of like outside the expected norm. You're a little extreme in certain things in your personality, and yet these are normal, natural, occurring personality traits, and absolutely everybody has them to a greater or lesser degree. But when you have a personality disorder, you are sort of like on the extremes and it's affecting your life basically. Okay, that's all it is. That's all it is. It's a shorthand. It's not limiting. It's not dictating to you what's going to happen in your life. It's not absolutely set in stone in any way, shape, or form. But it's there. So you can learn to work with it. But if you forget, and see, this is terrible to say, oh, you've got to forget that you grew up and had an abusive background. But guess what? If you forget that it's there and what'll happen is basically you will start abusing yourself in the same way that you were abused. You will compare yourself to normal, and you basically beat yourself up. And you don't need to do that. And you need to be able to remind yourself instantly when it comes up that that is your personality disorder. It is not a flaw that you have. It is not a choice that you've made, that this is who you are, what you are, why you are, and it's basically not your fault. Because if you don't remind yourself that you have this set of personality traits and that you have them to extreme and that you are actually sort of ruled by them, which I know sounds like I'm contradicting what I just said before, but it's not. These are the default guidelines that you go with in your life. If you don't confront them and if you don't prioritize what you're going to confront, you are going to treat yourself as badly as everybody else has. And it is so important that you don't do that. It is so important that you don't use it as an excuse to not get the, at least the bare minimum of what you need in your life. And if you use it as an excuse not to get what you like, I want this, you know what? You can get what you want. You're going to get everything? No. You're going to get what everybody else wants for you? No way. There are people in the world who are able to say, okay, these are the standards and I'm going to get them and I'm going to force myself to meet these standards even if I don't really want them. And that sucks. And they basically throw their life away by trying to be the perfect person or whatever. It's sort of like a good thing that avoidant people are just incapable of doing everything. So they're not wasting their life trying to, keep up with the Joneses, because you can't keep up with the Joneses, and that is okay. And you can make choices about what's important to you and what makes your life as easy as possible and going with those things. You know, I have an educational background that people are absolutely flabbergasted, and I would say still multiple times a year, as few people as I interact with are like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why aren't you like using that degree in a more like natural, productive way? Those degrees that I have. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And I'm like, because I'm doing this instead. And they go, oh, all these things that, I mean, there are things, okay, especially the travel, I get a lot. Like, I am so envious that you can do that. I'm like, yeah, you know what I'm not doing because I'm traveling? I'm making this choice in my life. Um, and then they go, oh, well, and I am. I am making the choice in my life. I could have chosen to be normal and get married. I could have done that. And I would be in a much worse sort of mental health position. I know this for a fact, um, because I am so mistrustful of I mean, like, I don't like calling my mechanic and asking him to look at a problem with my car because that's imposing. Can you imagine if I like had a spouse? I mean, I would make myself a slave. Um, it's just a fact. And then the other thing, beside the fact that it's like I can give myself a break, which I talk about all the time. Give yourself a break if you have the personality disorder, because there are things that we've been told what we're supposed to do, and we are not capable of doing that because of how we were treated and how we were groomed when we were growing up. Um, I mean, that's a terrible word and it has horrible sort of, implications, but it's also a fact. We were trained. If you have a personality disorder, it's not like something, it's not a one-time deal. It is a years long, basically, how the entire way that you grew up, you know. I mean, and yes, it could be like bullied at school, but if you're bullied at school for 12 years straight in a certain way that you became avoidant, if you were treated by your family in a certain way for 10, 12, 15 years and then you became avoidant, I mean, that's grooming. That's what it is. You were trained to be a certain way because somebody else was getting something out of it. Um, and don't forget that. Don't forget. And it's not like this is a terrible thing and you're never going to get past it. It's not something like every day of my life I have to worry about, this mistreatment. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying dwell on the mistreatment. I'm saying give yourself a break if you don't meet some social standard that you're supposed to, because of this. But the other part of it, that's also the other reason why it's really, really important to keep this in mind, is that you do interact in the world differently than other people in X, Y, and Z situation. And just this week, I had to give two apologies to people. The first one, I was like, okay, I'm sorry about how I um, reacted, blah, blah, blah. And this person who knows me was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even remember. Because that's part of being avoidant, is that you dwell on things. Well, other people might not dwell on them, okay? Um, and so it might be like this huge thing that you've got to get yourself over and apologize, and it's like nothing, literally nothing, like, whatever. And then the other person that I had to apologize to, um, I really, just the way I react, and it was me. It was okay. I have a diagnosis of complex post traumatic stress disorder, and I always ignore it because it is also tied to the avoidant personality disorder. But in this case, I really think it was more that. Um, but it was also, again, the treatment by the people that gave me avoidant personality disorder. So I mean, abuse is abuse, right? Anyway, but yeah, I absolutely had a super overreaction, which is classic CPTSD, whatever. See, it's all these stupid letters. Who cares? Whatever. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Um, it wasn't a relationship interaction type thing. So it was less the avoidant personality disorder and more of a, I mean, it kind of was, but it was, anyway, whatever. I mean, if I was having to tease them apart, I would say it was the other, but it was the same kind of thing. I basically overreacted to how somebody was interacting with me, and I really seriously offended them because they're like, "Wait, why are you getting so bent out of shape about this one little thing?" It's like, okay, well, because you know, basically I am unable to ever ask of you what you're asking of me, so therefore it will never be reciprocal, so therefore you're going, you know, beyond, how you should be imposing on me. I was like, wait, no. And they're like, wait a minute. Okay, so I just asked you this one simple little thing, and you could easily ask me it in reverse. I'm like, yeah, but I can't. I can't because of avoidant personality disorder. And I completely, like, the thing is, I thought I was like, oh, I'm getting like really really heated and snapped, and they were like, yeah, I can tell that you're not happy with me and you're angry with me over nothing. What this is not a big deal. Um, anyway, I'm like rambling because I'm trying to come up with an example because it's like clear as a bell to me, but if you're not there and you haven't experienced it, I don't know. If you're not interacting with anybody at all, this might not make any sense. But again, that's the other reason why you got to keep it in mind that how you act and react, you don't have to change, and you don't really have to apologize just for being that way, but sometimes how you act and how you interact with people, because and it makes perfect sense to you because yes, you're thinking like a person with avoidant personality disorder, is going to be very confusing to other people. um and so you've got to keep that in mind. And in my case, like the first example I came up with where I apologized for um whatever, now I don't even remember now because it's all totally resolved, but I did. And they're like, hey, why'd you apologize? You didn't need to. um Again, avoidant personality disorder. And that's why I do that. And that's why I react the way I react. And keeping in mind that other people do not have that makeup, and so they're not going to react in the same way I do, is very helpful. Um, and so those are two of probably many, many more reasons. I'm sure you can come up with more of your own, that it is really important to not forget about it, because you will, I'm telling you, you'll get to the point in your life where you have sort of gotten things working for you. And again, 5 million different, um, well, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And you're going to hear this from family members and everything else. And if you pay attention to, how like movies and everything else, this is how you're supposed to have your life. Social media, especially. This is how you're supposed to have your life situated. You're going to come up with your own way and it's going to work for you, and that's what matters. But you will get to the point where you're like cool with it, and somebody might be able to ask, are you happy by your own standards? You're probably going to be okay by your own standards. If you sit and think about it, you'll get really sad thinking about all the things you wish you could have in your life that you can't have in your life. But if you don't dwell on it, you're doing all right. And you'll forget. And then it'll come up. And you'll have this whiplash of, well, I should be doing X and I should be doing that. And I should react like this and should. Should is evil. But, if you've been trained to be abused and nobody else is abusing you, you will abuse yourself. So if you keep it in mind, then you can basically talk back to yourself and you can shore up what you are doing in your life, and remind yourself that these thoughts that you're having, this self-criticism that you're having, it's not based in your reality. Your reality is you have avoidant personality disorder. Therefore, you live in this world differently than whoever is making you feel inferior, again, at that moment. And also you could be having the CPTSD flashback type things also. Who knows? You might have a multiple diagnosis like me. I've lost track. I think I have 5 separate diagnoses. Who cares? The primary one is avoidant personality disorder. The one that affects me the most is avoidant personality disorder. So it informs everything else. And it's the one that really can't be treated, and other things that I have to a degree can be treated. Anyway, I've talked about this again and again and again. And the point of this video is to say, don't forget, don't dwell on it to the point where it's where you're self-flagellating. That's not the point. The point isn't to point out to yourself, oh, there's this, there's that, there's the other that you're doing that's incorrect. No. The point is to have it in your back pocket that when you get confronted with you're doing things wrong and different and weird and all this, you can say, yeah, I am. And it's because of I have avoidant personality disorder. And for me, it's normal. And for you, it might not be. But for me, it is normal. It is still within the range of normal, or it wouldn't be in the DSM. Now, is it ideal? No. But it's not unheard of. So, it's okay. And if you know this and this and this and this and this are the aspects of the avoidant personality disorder and how I exhibit them in the world, and then something comes along like crashes up against you and says, oh, that's just what are you doing? Oh, that's an avoidant thing. That's an avoidant thing. Rather than there's something uniquely weird and broken about me. I'm doing life wrong. You're not doing your life wrong. You're doing probably way more in order to function in the world than somebody without a personality disorder. You've got this stumbling block for getting through life that other people don't have to deal with. Facts. So anyway, that's why I think that you should keep it in mind and how to keep it in mind. Don't use it to beat yourself up. Use it to remind yourself and reset so that you don't beat yourself up. Makes sense? Anyway, see you next week. Bye.